Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Mike.
Dylan, I think we may be overdoing our Sunburn Game Engine ads.
Yeah,
And
probably.
I don't mean that in uh, over the top,
Even though
sensationalized.
that is also true.
No, I think we can't go over the top of Sunburn. I think there's not an upper limit on how much we can push and sell that. I think it's just wonderful, and you just get better every time. Um,
Well, no, we're not overselling them. We're just
I think we're supposed to
going.
do it
We're
for a 6 month run, and
yeah,
we're like into the 8th month of doing it. Fuck
I
it.
guess so.
I think
I've not been keeping track.
it's great. I want to keep pimping it. I'm gonna pimp it. I probably should send an email and ask, but it's awesome. So I'm gonna push it again. We talked last week about using it as your level editor. We talked about tons of the features in it over the weeks, but I guess at this point maybe it's worth pointing out just a recap of the rumors, maybe? Since we're not supposed to be doing like ads at this point. We had been, because, we just forgot to stop. We talk rumors on a little bit, but, the rumors that I know of are to expect Sunburn very soon. Very soon. Like, in time for Under the Christmas Tree. Windows 8 support. So, writing your XNA game in the C# and XNA that you love using the Sunburn engine, and compiling that game down and shipping it in the Windows 8 Metro Store and running on Windows 8 tablets. That they get in there and do under the hood the things that need to be done to make that compatible. But the rumors that interest me, the rumors that keep me wondering what's going on, are the rumors that have to do with the future of XNA. And that these guys at Synapse Gaming aren't giving up on XNA. And that I don't know that it's going to be XNA 5. I don't know that it's going to be called XNA. I don't know what it's going to be. But there's going to be something coming from these guys in a year or so. I don't know what the timeline is. Soon-ish. Year-ish.
Year is safe.
Yeah, year
That's
seems like
plausible
a safe,
deniability.
safe, plausible deniability.
You can change your estimate before
Yeah, you can always say next year the iPhone will have blah, and just you can always kick that one out. Because people forget by then anyway.
when it's done.
So
Be Blizzard.
the crazy part is that these guys aren't going to let XNA die, and this whole running on Windows 8 is opening the doorway to run on iPhone, run on Android. And that once these guys have, essentially what we're talking about is a compiler. We're talking about a compiler separate from .NET. Does not require the .NET runtime, compiles to native code. Once, that is cracked and that we're using this and they're doing their compiler, and sure, there's not going to be a whole lot of, it's not going to be a generic .NET engine. .NET is huge, but it's going to run enough to run XNA, which is what matters. The fact that then they can iterate, they can go forward with it. Like, it's not this static, abandoned thing. It's crazy rumor talk. We're out in just speculation zone. But that's the exciting part for me, of that these guys are going to take it, and they're going to do it, and they're behind it. They're behind XNA. They're behind the community. I'm certain that Sunburn's going to be a product that they sell, but that they're going to make sure that XNA doesn't die. Even if Microsoft ignores it, lets it alone, something's going to come from these guys. That's all wild speculation, guys. The guys at Sunburn won't confirm or deny anything that I say, and really, if you're listening to this podcast for your official news information, you haven't listened to enough of these podcasts yet. But check out more over at synapsegaming.com. Go grab the Sunburn framework for free. You can get the engine for $150. Get you in the door, with the engine. It's not much for an indie game developer. check out some of the games that have been built in it. It's really pretty awesome. See what it can do for your game, especially if you're doing anything 3D. And participate on the forums. It's a great community. These guys are really involved. They'll answer any questions, get you running. So give it a check out at synapsegaming.com. All right, welcome to the show, everyone. I think it's gonna be a lower key show.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be a mellow show tonight. It's been a hellacious week for me for reasons that cannot be discussed. A lot of good, nothing bad, but just stressful, crazy things happened this week and did all that. But through this week, a lot of work has happened on really polishing up XTiled. So back up to last week, XTiled is Funkworks putting out an open source project for rendering tiled maps. Tiled, very popular level editor, and you can go download Tiled. It is open source. It creates isometric and orthogonal map projections. So you can do all of your stuff on there. If your game in any way can leverage off of a tile engine, use it. Like, it doesn't have to be your average platformer. There's a lot of things you can do with this, such as, puzzle games and laying out the puzzle boards in a tile editor.
it's extremely flexible, so even things that don't necessarily map to tiles, there are all kinds of properties. You can set up regions. Like, you kind of have to
work within the
it's very flexible if you're willing to kind of hack at it.
Yeah, it's a by convention
figure out
tool,
how to use it.
Right? Like, if you're gonna put metadata into the tiled layer, it's gonna be by convention. Right now, they're kind of working on that, I think, in the next version, the 9.0 version. So I mean, why are we rewriting this library? Why did I do this? One is I'm sick of working on Captain Dubstep, and he gave me a project, because to go work on. But I got really into the pipeline, something I hadn't gotten into before. A lot of fun, a lot of system level optimizations that I get to make and things like that to make sure it's performant and all of that. So enjoyed that, getting in there. But first of all, it was to support every feature that file format supports, which we hadn't found an importer that did that so far. Second, we render isometric maps. That's something that I hadn't found in an XNA importer that was doing. But the big change that we're doing in XTiled, and this is not the norm by far, but we are using the content pipeline process to pre-calculate all the map data. So it's stored in the file format in a very compressed architecture. It's XML, but the data is kind of, there's a lot of by convention stuff in the XML. Like, you just have to know that the sequence of tiles given, it's in one array, and you just have to figure out where they belong based on its index in the array. We're baking all that in there. So when you load up XTiled at runtime, you already have. You grab a tile, I tell you the map coordinates that tile belongs to. We're integrating that and replacing that engine in Captain Dubstep now. In fact, you've already got that done.
Yeah.
Mostly. I think there might be some... Is the collision detection up and done too?
Collision detection, no. But it's working. But it's not...
Okay, so the collision detection is working Captain Dubstep side, because we don't have any methods yet.
We're not using anything... Well, we're not getting into, like, pixel-based collisions, because that wasn't very performant, but...
Yeah, it wasn't performant, and it wasn't actually working out because our tiles, we were drawing rough edges, and we kind of backed out of that. I'm going to come back to that. Remind me to come back to collision detection.
Okay.
But, yeah, we got it in there working. We made sure it's performant. We can now do this, actually. We can now go back and compare benchmarks. I don't think we're going to have... So, Nick Gravelin's TiledLib is the other popular one. Now, Nick kind of forced us to go down this path. We talked about it, and I kind of played with TiledLib and thought of, like, sending him pull requests to add the features we wanted and work within those confines. and support another project rather than creating our own. But he decided that he was no longer going to release the runtime components. And I really think we need, we're going to need the runtime component, so might as well release it. And then since we're going to write that, the easier part in my mind is the importers, because it's just decoding the file format and getting that running. So we've got everything precompiled or pre-calculated for you. And with that, we're going to start adding helper methods to make it useful in the game. The first ones that we got in there, aside from draw, of course,
Right.
we got our draw methods in there. And then the first one we got in there is now called translate methods. And I think this weekend I will push up a binary release. I think I'll go ahead and just say, okay, here's the first binary release of ours. I think I'm going to come up with a convention for versioning that puts the tiled map level that it's built against support in our version number. So right now tiled is up to 0.81. So I think we might be 0.8101 or something. And like we'll rev the last two numbers, but then we'll go to 0.9 when tiled goes to 0.9, so that it'll always be easy, like, what version of tiled are you running? That's the version that you'll need to grab. And if you're running an older version for whatever reason, you'll just have to grab an older version. In general, it's probably going to be backwards compatible, but it may not be because we don't know which direction they're going to go. So I think that's the way we're going to version. I might put a binary release up. Most of the bulk of documentation I think is run. I just have to write down some key design guidelines that we did in the framework. One is we pre-calculated everything. So what's the downside on that? We take up slightly more memory. Captain Dubstep loads the entire map, which is scaled up and larger than the Metroid map, to memory. So if you consider one tile in Metroid and one tile in Captain Dubstep, Metroid was 16 by 16 and we're 48 by 48. Yeah. But if you go one-to-one tile, Captain Dubstep is larger than the full Metroid map. And the Metroid map, of course, had loading sequences. We load that entire map instance in memory at once. And in tiled lib, which did not pre-calculate, it calculated data on the fly, loaded up a minimal set, it was 24 megs on the Xbox. The Xbox is all that counts to me. So when I profile, when I say something, I'm talking about on the Xbox. And it threw about a K of garbage per frame. I think is what it was, 1440 bytes. Because there's some boxing and unboxing in the design of tiled lib that we eliminated in our design for XTiled. And so it's 24 megs. We're throwing no garbage, and we are 26 megs. So for a massive, insane map, we've added almost 2 megs of memory, and we might be able to optimize that. There might be some optimizations that I can make on that. But I don't think it's needed. Like, we're way under what it is. And we could easily go to a map loading system for XTiled. What else did I change? I've decoupled textures from the map. So by default, it's going to load your textures, your sprite sheets, and reference them, and you're not even going to have to worry about the texture objects. But if you want to, you can turn that off and manually load the textures yourselves. And why would you do that? If you're going to load multiple maps, and they're going to share the same texture sheet. So this would be like a puzzle game instance. Let's say you made a tiled map for every puzzle that you have, and you have 50 puzzles in your game. They're all going to use the same tile set, right? You're just positioning things on the puzzle and using that as metadata. It may not even be how it gets rendered. It may just be your metadata editor. You would only want to load your textures once. You would not want to load your textures each time. Other things we changed, we do not require any names or properties to be set on objects that Tiled itself does not require. So one thing we'd run into is you'd forget to name a region on an object layer in Tiled, and Tiled lib will crash at build because it wants a unique name for all of that because the back end was chosen to be a dictionary store. So we got rid of that so that you can not... I overloaded basically an array to make name-based arrays if you want, but it still has an integer index so that it'll load things up without names. And you can do that as well. Collision detection and things like that. So there's a support in Tiled for polygon objects, for polylines, and I think one of the things that I might do before a binary release is convert their format, because right now they're in a series of points, and I might make them a series of lines instead of a series of points. So the polyline object will be easy to deal with because it will already be just lines. This way you don't need to know that a polygon object doesn't actually have the closing connection at the end set, or that the order that it's going in is clockwise face or anything like that. Well, the lines will kind of do it for you, but you'll have that all calculated if you're going to use it. The reason I might go ahead and go with lines is I looked last night at determining if a point was within a polygon or not for any shaped polygon. And there's this genius little simple test that you can do that is fucking awesome when I saw it. And it was come up in some mathematical paper in, I think, like the 40s or 50s, basically, or maybe in the 80s, that referenced something in the 40s. But it's old. It's quite old. And all you have to do is you take your point and you project a horizontal line, okay, to the outside of the polygon shape, which is really easy to know. You can just get the greatest, you know, X point value, and then project a line past that point. And count the number of polygon lines that it intersects.
So this doesn't have to be a convex polygon.
Doesn't care whether it's convex, concave, or has holes in it. If you intersect an odd number of lines, okay, you are inside the polygon. If you intersect an even number of lines, you are outside. And they draw a bunch of shapes on there, and they show, like, if you go through, if you just have a simple polygon that makes like a U shape, and you're in the center of that U, when you project that line across, you're going to hit it twice, right? If you're inside the U, you're just going to go through one. If you're on the opposite side of the U, you're going to go through three, right? And it works out for all these cases for donut holes and everything. And you just count that up. And there's C code example, and it's a really short thing. And I found a Stack Overflow question where somebody had like, here's this example converted to C#. And I saw that, and it's like, this would be really easy to have a collision detection method with polygons. And then we could do our collision detection not against tile layers, which is always an option, but against a polygon object. Like, just draw, for us, most of the time it would be rectangles, but we could draw these big giant rectangles, and like, you know, hey, if all the polygons are on screen, that would be much faster and efficient, because you're only considering, you know, a few polygons versus that. Then that also led me to thinking, with that on there, it'd be really easy for us to do moving platforms, because we could just draw the line from the start and the end point for a platform, place an object with metadata properties, and then follow on that line, and you just do a linear interpretation and follow the points, and then you could have all kinds of moving platforms pretty easy in your framework. Again, this is where it's led me to thinking that it'll be really easy to do a MegaMan game. I mean, like, the amount that you could build in Tiled and not have to, you know, write code once and then just lay it out in the level. And I'm talking MegaMan 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and actually, you could do some other neat tricks with polygons. If you could grab the line that your character's bounding box is intersecting, you know, you could probably figure out if you're going up or down a slope and adjust accordingly. So
it'll be also real easily for me to know. I'll be able to create actual polygon objects and polygon line objects, and then put bounding rectangles on those pre-calculated for you. So you could do easily rectangle.contains on the bound before you even go into the more costly polygon.
And again, this is where Tiled kind of supports, you know, hacking. It's not opinionated about
Yes.
what you're putting into it, but you can kind of...
The isometric rendering, I talked a little bit about that last week, but that is done by projecting isometric back to orthogonal. So if you're rendering an isometric map, you actually have orthogonal tiles again. I have never done an isometric game, so I don't know if that's more of a pain or more of a help. That'll be something that may change once somebody says, hey, I'm doing this isometric game, and these are the issues I'm encountering with your methods. And then we might not add or new methods. We might start having the methods change behavior based upon the map orientation that is in there. There is currently no runtime code that cares whether it's isometric or orthogonal.
Or that handles isometric?
Right. There's no need for it. It's all handled on build time. And so the code is identical in both places, and it works in both places. But like I said, it's going to have, it might have some issues because I haven't actually done an isometric game. But all the maps, they all render identical to Tiled. So you can do things in Tiled that you may not realize. Like you can have a 48 by 48 tile grid and place on it 60 by 60 sprites. It'll do that. And there's a handling as far as like where does the overflow go and what tiles should be on top of that tile in the rendering order. Like it's gonna look funky. Especially if it's on a layer that has sprites beside it. But however funky it looks in Tiled, it's gonna look in XTiled. I've done that. I've done those tests. So the collision detection is not going to be in this round. I think I'll change the polygon objects in prep for how I'm going to do that and have those be actual polygon objects going forward. But for the meantime, I'm not going to put in. I think we just need to get a binary release out there because I think people will start downloading and grabbing it. Also, once I put the binary release on there, I've already gotten the go-ahead and permission to throw it up on the wiki for TiledLib. So when you look at TiledLib, like the Microsoft...
You mean Tiled?
Tiled, yeah.
Okay.
Tiled. I'll add our option to that list so that anybody can go and we'll see it. And then at that point, we might get some traffic on it. I mean, Tiled is pretty popular. Tiled has an interesting 9.0 version coming where they're actually going to have an object sheet for setting object properties. And I will also make sure because there's beta builds already, alpha nightly builds of 9.0 that they're getting close to release on, and I'll just double check. I think because they've already added to the format docs the 9.0 features, I think we're already 9.0 compliant because there's features that I manually hacked in. I couldn't test without editing the XML directly, and I asked, like, how do I set these in Tiled? I don't see a way to set it, you know, like the transparency of an individual object tile.
Right.
And it's like, that's not in there yet. That's coming. So, it's like, oh, okay, well, great. But Tiled, something we never supported, it supports types. Like, you can set up global types. And again, there's nothing, but that just populates a drop down in Tiled. But you could key to those types and say, this is an NPC, this is Spike, this is that, and drop that. Or you could do that on your tile sheet too. That's a cool thing. So on your tile sheet, you can set metadata properties on the source tile. So you could right click on all your spikes in your tile sheets and set those properties there and how much damage each spike does, and what kind of knockback effect it has, or if it just instant kill or whatever. And then just place them at will in your level and not have to worry anymore about even making object sprites. You could just reference that, you know, it'll be up to you how you build your game. And in the way we've built it too, like I said, we have our draw methods in there and we've given a number of overloads that should work for the different sprite batch methods. So if you're doing immediate front to back, it's supported now. So, you know, deferred rendering and allowing you to customize the layers. But we're handling all the draw logic. There's not much. I'll put this in the documentation on the site, but if you crack open and look at that source file, it's pretty straight ahead what you do to render it. You know, all the calculations that go into getting it to render. The other approach that we did take on that was breaking from TiledLib, probably the most breaking change in Captain Dubstep for us was that TiledLib works by applying a transform to sprite batch.
Yes.
So that you have to then account for that transform in all graphics, not just the TiledLib graphics, which kind of got annoying after a while because our menus and overlays, we couldn't just position in screen space. They had to be positioned kind of in map space so that they got backed out again, which we worked around that. That was not a big deal. We kind of worked around that and set up our calculations for that. But everything that we had positioning based in Captain Dubstep was assuming that transform in place, so that was probably the biggest change. But at this point, it's in there, it's in Dubstep. That's kind of been we've got mini tests set up, but that's been our bigger test. And so I feel confident about pushing out a binary. And we might find some bugs, and we might issue some updates on that too, as others grab it and they use it in other games. I still think I may take it and start to write another game with it, but I don't know if it'll become a release or not.
Or just kind of a test
Just another test game where I want to play with moving platforms and things like that for A, to see it work, but B, to like implement it in a game and then see like, okay, is there things I'm doing that XTiled should do? Not that it could do, but it should do. Like one thing I toyed around with, and I kind of want your thoughts on this. You always have this map region, the active map region, right? That's the source rec that you're grabbing from your map. And I thought of, before I checked in last night, making that a property on the class so that you just set that property before you called all your draw and everything. And then you wouldn't have to explicitly pass it in. And I kind of reasoned myself out of it, of being, that was breaking a separation of concerns.
Well, and
it would be convenient because you would have less arguments to pass into methods, but that's something the game should be tracking, not the map class represents the data of the map.
Yeah, it almost feels like we could have a wrapper on top of map.
It'd be very easily for us in Captain Dubstep to subclass it.
Yeah.
And make a static on that or something that does what we would do.
Well, even perhaps we could put this in XTiled, depending on how complicated it gets, depending on how universal it is. But, you know, in Captain Dubstep, we're tracking the camera location. We are actually tracking kind of the active area, so we can tell when an enemy is, you know, a good ways off screen. I think I made it like 1.5 times the size of the camera, so that enemies still activate once they go off screen. And then I've got an even larger area for respawns. So we could have something like that in there, so, you know, you could grab all the objects from this layer inside this rectangle. Or, well, actually that gets complicated because in Captain Dubstep, a lot of what I'm using the active rectangle for and the respawn rectangle are things I've read out of the map, and I've created, you know, our own classes that are specific to the game. So I don't know. I think we can play with it in Captain Dubstep, and then down the road.
Yeah, I thought of that, and that's what I thought too, of like, then maybe I should create like a game map class that could contain game logic, which is kind of what that is. And we could add more to that, and I just thought, let's get out where we're at right now, and let's add in our collision detection methods and up our polygons, and then think on that a little bit more. But I mean, we could make it more out of the box, easier to use.
And I could see there being kind of a different template for, you know, for that wrapper class. You know, you have like 3 or 4 maybe, depending on the type of game you're building and the type of things you need to track.
So if you listen to podcasts, you can go check out XTiled. It's on Bitbucket. So if you go to bitbucket.org and you just search on XTiled, it comes right up. It'll be like Bitbucket assigns it to the user, so it's like bitbucket.org/vinyl/XTiled. But if you're interested in checking that out, you can go grab that now and just do a pull. Like I said, I'll probably get a binary release up. It may not be until Sunday that I get that done, or later Saturday. I don't know what my weekend looks like yet. but I would like to get that done and released this weekend. And like I said, I just got a page of documentation or two to write, and then I post that binary release, or I post a binary release before the documentation's done. Why not? And get that up there. And I think, I mean, it's pretty good. At this point, we at least have feature parity, if not a few more features, because we support all the metadata from all that are out there. We do have a different approach, so if you have an existing game and you don't have a good reason to switch off of what you're using now, I would say not finish up your existing game, but maybe in your next one you want to take a look at this and see if that would be an easier approach. And, you know, if you do check it out, send us feedback. We set up a mailing list for XTiled specifically, so you can put XTiled there, but you can also send it to us. I mean, we'll answer it as well there, but that is XTiled. Game-wise, I said I've been playing MegaMan 3. I don't think I talked about this on the podcast. I've been playing MegaMan 3, and then also at the same time I've been playing on the DS MegaMan ZX. I don't have a copy.
Like, is this a new?
This is a DS MegaMan. Okay. So, but yeah, it's post Mega Man X, and it takes a lot of Mega Man X things in there. But I've not played Mega Man X, which I really feel like I need to get my hands on and play it, because it seems to be a seminal shift in the Mega Man series. From like a reboot after like all the Mega Man 7s and, you know, all of that got up there. I kind of, you know, I don't know. I haven't played 4, 5, 6, and 7. 3. I played 1 and 2 as a kid. Love 1 and 2. Replay 1 and 2. And I'm playing 3, and it's starting to feel like this is where the formula gets old. Like, the bots don't have interesting names or motifs, really. The worlds don't seem to be as uniquely themed. Like, they have an art style, but, like, it's not as tied into the boss,
a single concept,
as well as it was in the first two. And it really just feels, like, forced, you know, of, like, make us another one. Make us another Mega Man hit. You know, these things are selling like hotcakes. I demand another within a year. And then it's like, I'm out of ideas, man. I got no more ideas for Mega Man. You know, here is Stumpbot. I don't know, man. Like, he's a tree stump. And he jumps and oh crap, I did that with Guts Man. Okay, he just sits there and throws his rings at you or something. I don't know what he does. Like fucking Top Man. Top Man's power is you spin.
Yep.
I think I haven't played the rest, but I've seen on the internet a confirmation that it is the lamest Mega Man power ever. But yeah, so at this point in Mega Man 3, I've beaten all the, and I haven't done it with any internet help. I didn't go on the internet, and look up weaknesses. So I've been replaying levels, and I kind of feel good in that I'm able to get through and figure out the levels and replay them. And I feel good because it's like I'm going back and playing these hard platformers, at least that's what they've been reminiscent of, and I can still get through them once I've played them a few times. Whereas like Mega Man 9, I quit out of frustration to say like, yeah, you know what? No, I have not gotten worse. You guys have. I can go back and play these. I can play new games of that era and still be as good in it.
What's actually surprising is I went back and played Mega Man 2, and I want to say part of 3, or maybe part of 1. There's one I just gave up on. But I played them on emulators. After having played them as a child, and then maybe 5-7 years ago bought the Mega Man collection for Xbox and getting completely frustrated. And I don't know if it's the
Mega Man collection for Xbox. Does it have Mega Man X?
I don't think it does. I think it's just the original.
It's the number?
I may be wrong. Okay. I may be wrong about that. But I was actually surprised going back and playing it, and I don't know if it became easier because I had that emulator and could do save and load states. You know,
yeah.
And because I was using the 360 controller. Like, you don't realize it, but, you know, the PS3 and the 360 controller are really a lot better than...
I was going to actually just say the opposite. For these precision platformers, like the NES controller in particular, seems a lot more... Like, rapid button pressing is more difficult on the 360, because it's really designed around games that if you need that kind of thing, you have an auto shoot. You just hold it down.
Yeah.
But I mean, like getting off rapid shots of the Mega Man blaster and all of that, like I'm actually still like setting the controller kind of on my prop leg or something so that I can now move my fingers up and do quick taps and,
to be fair,
faster presses.
Emulator also has a turbo button.
Okay.
So you can use, there. But it's
well,
not...
I mean, I could break out my NES Advantage.
Yes.
And dial in the turbo.
There were actually some games where I had to do that. Like, there were some games that I could not play without that.
Did you ever play with the slow mode?
I think that was always annoying, and
because it just hit the start button really fast.
Yeah, and it really depends on what game you're playing.
If that worked or not.
Is that work?
Like you do that in Legend of Zelda, and the top map just goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. So, I've been playing that now. Okay, so Mega Man 3 is the sequel to 2. It's very similar. It does introduce Rush.
Yeah.
It does introduce sliding. And there's no... It actually kind of falls down because there's no... I didn't know you could slide. I got to a stage in... I forget whose level it's in. But you actually have to slide to get past this part. And I didn't know what I did wrong. Like, I don't know if I missed a jump. And I was like, wow, Mega Man... fucking dick. Like, it'll actually, like, put you in a situation where... you have to reset the nest. Like, I can't get out of here. There's no timer countdown. There's no way to kill myself. And I did. I ended up resetting the nest and going into a different level. I thought maybe I get a power-up or something. And then playing another level, I was just running, and all of a sudden he, like, slid. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? How did I do that? You know?
And that's
granted, they had, booklets. And since I'm buying this used, I didn't get the booklet. But I felt that, not Rush Coil, but Rush Marine, I guess is what RM stands for.
I think so.
And Rush Jet, RJ, feel game breaking. Okay? So like in Mega Man 1, you had that blue beam that you could throw, and then it ran out. So you were constantly like freaking out to hell when you ran that thing, you were gonna die.
And 2 had
the power-ups 1, 2, and 3. One was a platform that went up, one was a platform that walked, and the other was the jet platform that just shot straight across. But it shot until it hit something, and then that was it. You better hope you land. You have no other opportunity to get on anything. But like Rush Jet is like this, you can move all over the screen. You have full freedom of movement. And I feel like this is a point like the sequelitis, where it talks about Castlevania 1 to Castlevania 2. No. Castlevania 1 to Castlevania 3 or 4 or whatever. Super Castlevania?
Probably Super Castlevania.
Yeah, so he's talking about Super Castlevania because you can whip in all directions and everything, and how they didn't change the design of the level now that you could whip in all directions. So now all the other power-ups are useless because who cares, you can whip in all directions, and the levels are no longer challenging because you can whip in all directions, and the problems that were difficult in the first original Castlevania were caused because you had this limited range of this crap whip, and you used the upgrade items tactfully, strategically to get through the level. I felt that in 3 when I got Rush Jet. There were entire sequences I just flew through the very first time. Like, usually in a Mega Man level, like, you're gonna die until you kind of know what's coming. And then the second time through, you'll get it.
And did you tend to burn through your energy pretty quickly? Like, you'd get through one of these sequences, but...
There was a long enough energy burn that, that first time I got through, I think I still had like 2/3 or 1/3.
But if the levels are short,
the levels felt shorter in 3 than in 2 as well. And I don't know that for a fact. They just felt that way.
I may have tried to play 3, and that may have been where I stopped. But I can't remember. Because I want to say I remember the sliding thing, and I was confused as well.
Okay.
It does surprise me at, how much innovation there actually was in the series. Because I remember it being just kind of the same thing over and over until 4 or 5.
Again, this is the 5-year gulf difference. I grew up with these two.
Yeah.
Like, I see stark differences between Mega Man 1 and 2.
Yes, I mean there are definitely differences there, but like from 2 on, I thought there was more sameness.
Okay, yeah, then that may be true, and that's what I'm feeling in 3. I'm feeling a lot of like Rush isn't all that new. He's just a reskinned version of the power ups you got in 2.
Yeah.
So ZX now. So ZX has a distinction of being the first game in which you can play female. You get a choice, and it's MegaMan is now a suit. Okay, so you get the Z suit, and you switch between Z and X. So X I think is X is the suit, and then Z is your normal state. But you can, like, I don't think you slide with the suit on. You can crawl or something things with the suit off or something, and it's fucking Metroidvania, like new school Metroidvania. To where you're running around everywhere like Metroid, but you also have people and towns to talk to when you go there, and like that Castlevania 2 style. And I'm guessing the later Castlevanias that I never played. But I mean that it's not a platform anymore. That it's like this whole like quest thing happening at the same time. Yeah, it's that. To the point where you're backtracking and getting missions and running all that. It is a good game, and it did get highly rated. But it is kind of an interesting evolution.
Do you have kind of a weird feeling with it? Because I remember playing, I think I played X1, the first Mega Man X, and that jump, they broke a lot of kind of the
Yes.
pattern that they use in the first ones, and you play it, and my first reaction was, this is not, you know,
You have
what
a
I
lot
remember.
of that. You have charged shots, you have sliding down walls and wall jumping, you know.
It wasn't just that, it was the structure of the level and the structure of the game itself.
So that I don't know, because I've just watched video of it. But, like, the way Mega Man controls is very similar.
Well, in the sense...
the level design here is Metroidvania, though.
Does it bother you because it's not Mega Man? It's not that traditional 8 boss stages, then Dr. Wily, then whatever.
No. I mean, there are boss battles in the game. They're not stage select. But, I mean, at some point, like, when I logged into 3, that felt like oh, dear God. I gotta figure out the order these guys go in. So there's gonna be a good deal of, like, death until I kind of get that down.
And you can kind of brute force your way through some of them.
And well, you do. I mean, you really do. And sometimes you'll figure out the right item, but you won't have enough to kill him that round because you had to go through 3 items and he got some hits off on you. And then you run out of that item. And Mega Man 3 still has the dickish, well, you died, so you start right before the boss, but you don't get a refill on your shit. So, since you just ran out of the wonder item that kills him, and he just beats the fuck out of you with any other item, those 5 lives that you have right now, they're fucking gone. They're gone. You'll never beat him with the lemon shooter, or whatever he calls it in Sequelitis.
Yeah.
So, it has that annoyance. But, playing it, though, going back and forth, not X, not ZX, but I'm really kind of inspired at this moment, though, to do some Mega Man 1, 2, 3 era levels in XTiled and build those out. And I may just, like, when I say that, I may be talking, like, red, black, blue, white blocks to represent the different things that do the logic of a lot of the Mega Man features and things like that, but not actually going to the point of, like, I'm making this look nice. Yeah. No. I'll get it up, and I'll find out if, like, I have fun playing these things, because it's kind of a game designer challenge, too, of, like, what made the levels in 1 and 2 so much better than the levels in 3? It's platforming, right? There's no fucking story going on, man. It's pick a boss and go through its platform world, and yet there's such a nostalgic joy there. Is it just nostalgia? Is it good level design? Is it...
Well, I mean, in some cases it could be you can only do so many of the disappearing block puzzles before you're really just repeating yourself and stretching.
Yeah, yes.
For example.
And, they kind of kept those limited and everything like that. But, Mega Man... 3 doesn't seem to engage the verticality that 2 did. And 1 kind of, you know, it did as well. I don't know why they dropped that off, but there were some levels that were very vertical oriented. The vertical sections aren't really vertical sections. They're rooms that you go up into, you know.
Well, in Quickman, like in the Quickman stage in 2, that was the whole point. Like, you had to avoid these laser
Electric Man in 1, you know, you were climbing those things while things were shooting at you.
Yeah.
And you had to navigate on the ladder and avoid being hit. I don't know why they got away from that. And I kind of think that's one of the things, because there was a variety, but there was also a way to make a level distinct, like Quickman, you know, of like, you're falling in Quickman to dodge these things really fast. That was the thing in Quickman.
Well, I wonder if that ties into the idea that these levels kind of lose their concept later in the series, because, you know, the robot master concept is just so far out there. Like, Top Man stage, I think, was toys and stuff, so you get...
Man, it's funny. If it was, I didn't get that. Like, playing through it...
I'm just going from memory. I may be completely off base there, but, you know...
It seems like Mega Man 3 has a lot more repetitive items to fight. Whereas in like 1 and 2, like, they popped up again, but not as often. So like the little dudes that shoot from under their helmets, like, they were really like a Gutsman thing in level 1, and then in placed sporadically elsewhere. But the other thing they got away from too, I noticed, and I don't know if they do this in 2 or not, but in 1 you collected pellets for points.
Yeah, they totally took the scoring system.
And it's like, that had no fucking purpose whatsoever.
Yeah, because
that was like a holdover from arcade machines of like, high scores matter.
Well, Super Mario Brothers had points, but, you know,
who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Because you're trying to get through it.
So that's what I've been playing. What have you been playing? Anything playing that you've been...
Let's see.
That's worth talking about game design wise?
I've played a little bit of Final Fantasy VI again. I went back and achievement hoard Hearthfire for Skyrim, which is interesting. It's an interesting way of handling like the customization, building your own house. I don't know. Like, I was not that interested in customization. I never was. Like, even when you could buy your own house instead of building it from scratch, but I went through to get the achievements. I played, because my roommate John started playing the free trial of it, Star Wars The Old Republic. Because they're free trial up to level 15, and then at some point in the fall they're going free to play, which we actually did a discussion of this on Chainsaw Buffet, the episode that actually went up today. Kind of what we liked and didn't like. And what's interesting is John sees it as more of, I think the way he put it was, it's, you know, your BioWare RPG with the MMO candy shell, whereas I saw it, not having played as many BioWare RPGs, but having played a lot of Warcraft, I see it as the MMO with the BioWare candy shell. Like, they did a lot of good things to bring out the story and to make you feel like you were doing something unique in this world. But, you know, once you've played WoW, you can see the Matrix. You know, like, you know everything's on rails and you know what all these mechanics really are. I won't go too far into that because, like I said, we got into that on the Chainsaw Buffet podcast, so that's already been discussed. Probably better than I could from memory.
Well, alright, I'm not going to get into the farm villain over there.
I've mostly been playing Minecraft, so suck it.
Dragon City? That's what I keep seeing on Facebook. I don't know what that is.
It pops up crap that you accidentally click on because I don't want to inundate people who don't play it with the shit.
Again, I'm not discussing the farm villain games. Death Spank is a protest against sexism in games. This is develop pumping a headline out of a comment in an interview, so it's like over sensationalized. But I thought it was real interesting just to know that Ron Gilbert in the Death Spank sequel or expansion, Thong of Virtue, the hero guy wears the thong, like the male figure wears the thong, and it was just like his like way of just like he himself is kind of like upset at the over sexualization of women in video games. And again, if you go look back at like Ron, you know, his games, there were female characters and there were jokes and things like that, but he didn't have boobs pushing out of bras and, you know, panty shots and shit like that going on. And so I think he's kind of just not liking that aspect of games and how heavy they push that. And so it wasn't like he was like, they're all evil and all of this. He was just like, yeah, I kind of don't like that. And my poke at them was, I made the male hero wear the thong.
And you know, that's not a bad way to approach it, because if you saw the Bic for Her fiasco or whatever, did you see that?
The what?
Bic Pins launched a line of pins called Bic for Her.
Bic for Her, yes, I've seen this on Amazon.
And there were just, you know, these horrible reviews.
They're just a pastel set of pins.
Yeah, but it's the name that makes it sexist. Like, that sort of thing, the best thing you can do is laugh at it. Like, if you try to argue against it, yeah.
I love those pins of women writing in and just saying, like, finally, you know, there's pins and colors that I can relate to, and, you know, I haven't been able to write in pink, and, you know, therefore, you know, I'll be able to now write in a man's world. And then there was, I can hold these pins so much better in my dainty woman hands. And then there was like a comment to that of like, what should I get? I have man hands. You know, should I get the Bic for men pins because I have man hands, or should I get the female pins and all of that? And yeah, just a total fail in marketing, there. And it's insane to think that even makes it out, you know, like that was a real. There was no one over at Bic to go, no, like we will be land blast. We will be a joke. And at best, we will be a joke.
Although how many did they sell ironically?
With the protesters, we will deal with like bans and like, you don't know how bad this internet stuff can turn on you. You know, where people are asking for boycotts of Bic pins and everything, and people are protesting and picketing Bic. Like, it can get really bad.
But honestly, the reviews, kind of like this, it's not polarizing, it's just kind of like, you know, thumbing your nose at it.
That was good. Hey, Microsoft is beginning to try to set a world game jam record by getting more than 300 students to develop 8 Windows 8 games in 48 hours. In related news, there will be 300 apps at launch for Windows 8. I'm making that up. There's only going to be 250. Some of those kids will drop out. No, that's not true either. That was mean. That was uncalled for. Nobody's writing Windows 8 apps. All right. This is a great article I got here. I'll have in show notes. XNA to Unity, Radiant Games Method, and he's starting a series on this, and he has done some good series in the past on porting his games from XNA to Unity.
Is this building an XNA-like framework, or is this, or using an XNA-like framework, or is this basically translating concepts?
This is bringing over, cutting, pasting my code into Unity and fixing as little as possible. So it sounds like there were some things in Unity like I didn't know, but he's basically wired himself up in Unity a game main class, a game 1 class there that you get that has an update and a draw method that farms out to all his other objects that are renderers and handles all his stuff from code. And obviously Unity is not built with that intent in mind, but reading it, it's like giving me a new reason to look into Unity of like, okay, all right, I see how you're getting in there and you're doing that. And I didn't get far enough in reading this first one, but I was kind of seeing how he was doing the 2D layer rendering, because of course all his graphics are in 2D and Unity is a 3D framework. Now he does say too, like, what he's writing is the specific approach for the Unity games that he has released. His first game took a month, but his subsequent games that he brought over, he pretty much wrapped up the port in about 4 days. For all that. So that'd be that is a good article to read.
Again, extremely wild that, XNA is living on far past, Microsoft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks to the community.
Game Maker Studio went free. So Game Maker basically split itself into 3 versions. A free version, which has some limits of like 15 rooms or something, some like content limits, but you can basically download it and play with the tool. Studio Standard, which removes the content limitations, but removes some bells and whistles and extra features for team development. I don't know if it removes any game features in that $50 version. And then a $99 version, which is the professional, which then the $99 version is the prerequisite for the iOS module and Android module, which are $200 each, and the HTML5 module, which is $100.
So basically kind of a Unity style.
It's very well taking a Unity adoption curve. Much easier to get into Game Maker than Unity if you're completely new. It's good to see them split into this 3 versions and this free version, because we use this Game Maker a lot in getting kids to start game development, and that's a good way for them to jump in. It's not quite Scratch level of simplicity. It's a little bit more advanced than that, but not so far as like a Unity or coding environment is going to be expected. So that's good to see them do that. I hope that first of all, I hope they fix the complaints and the problems that people had in their performance in their later versions, because there was a lot of people who were using Game Maker to release games state that they were staying on older versions of Game Maker because newer versions were slower. So hopefully they've cleaned that up. I don't know. Last big news of the week, Steam Picture Mode. And once again, Ben Butthurt Conchera is bitching, and he's like, I think he's just a contrarian. I think he's just trying to use his Penny Arcade section and editorial to be the contrarian. And he's been saying, it's not a big deal yet. Steam, big picture, this isn't a big deal yet. Nobody's gonna move PCs out to the living room. Nobody's gonna do the, just the extreme geeks, and this is small.
That's kind of ironic considering that, like is it the Asus E-Box? There's been a couple of models of PCs just for that.
Yes. There's been that. There's also the HTPC type build where people are just building, media center PCs out in the living room. That's going on, which could run on that. There's what I looked into last night quite deeply. I forgot to ask Dad about the feasibility of what's it going to take for me to get 2 Cat6 wires between my computer in the office and my television in the living room, because if you can run 2 Cat6 wires, you can run an HDMI cable over Cat6. So all it requires is that you have 2 Cat6 lines, not 1. You need 2 lines, but you get the full audio and everything. You can go to Monoprice and for about $15 to $20 buy wall plates that are meant to take Cat6 on the back with an HDMI connector on the front. So I would get that set up, and then out my back of my computer, HDMI line plugged into the wall, and then out from the wall into the TV. I sit at my computer, I launch big screen mode, and then big picture mode, and then I walk out to the living room with my controller and play away. That sounds great to me.
I can see it not being the mainstream right now, and I think the whole home media center thing, like, I don't know if the E-Box and whatever the other models like that are the big thing now, but I can see that coming around again.
But the thing is that Valve has made Microsoft look like stagnant idiots.
Yeah.
On the dashboard. Like, their dashboard is better than the Xbox dashboard has ever been. It's pretty. It has my games. It has just the shit that I want. It's well organized. I can move around it quickly. They rethought the input wheel. I don't know if you've seen this.
No,
They got this weird flower thing, so that you're using a radial menu to input keyboards, and so you have 8 positions. There might be more than 8. I don't think it's quite 16. Might be 12 positions in a radial menu. And then in each position, your X, Y, A, and B buttons each highlight a letter. So straight up is A, B, C, and D.
That's if you need to type something in.
Yes. And you'll have a chat pad or something on it.
That's a good solution.
And it is kind of like once I sat there and started using it, I was still not fast at it, but I could see myself getting fast at it. Versus the, scroll through the analog keyboard.
And it's still early, so if feedback is bad on that, they can still iterate.
Well, they have been betaing this thing for a year.
Okay.
And it shows. Like, this has gone through a lot of research and effort and development. But the other thing, it has a browser built in. And the browser's not bad. They call it first-person browsing. Because they've really taken first-person controls and mapped those into, like, navigating web pages. And so that kind of works. Like, it kind of does, like, oh, okay, this is kind of weird. But yes, this is what, your first-person zoom, this moves your orientation, this changes your location, and all of that. That metaphor worked. And it's like, you guys thought about this for a moment. You didn't just wire up the standard mouse controls to the controller and call it a day. You thought about the input, the interface, and put some design effort that Microsoft has not given to the Xbox dashboard because they're so busy trying to figure out how to cram more ad space into it. So, why is it a big deal? No, it's not going to be everybody, right? It's going to be early adopters and stuff like that. But Valve is going to have metrics on everybody who's using this. And they'll probably have metrics to know if they're using it over HDMI signals to get a rough estimate of how many people are actually using it to game in the living room.
And incidentally, we're coming up on another console cycle, so...
We are coming up on another console cycle?
If they do some good stuff, I can't imagine that, Sony and Microsoft and maybe even Nintendo would be able to incorporate... Well, not Nintendo, I guess, since they've announced the
They've
Wii
already
U.
done the Wii U. I didn't even cue that story up. That's how impressed I am with the Wii U. On the Wii U, since we will talk about that, I guess, for a little bit, and I think we kind of covered, well, to wrap up big picture, to wrap up Steam big picture, it is very, very much a big deal, because even just, like, kicking back from your computer and, like, leaning back in the chair, just a lean back, it's crazy awesome. And I want to launch my games that way. I just want to kind of navigate around. So I think they're going to have great success even just on the PC with the interface. But there will be a good number of people, and that's going to justify this whole Steam console concept. And yeah, first it's going to come from, like, the Asus and eBox and that kind of the manufacturers, and Alienware has a box. It's like $900. Designed to hook up to your television and that kind of thing. But it'll give Valve a interest in, do we make a box? And do we run it at the design level that, it's a $400 to $500 box. If you do a $400 Steam console, $450, you're about $100 higher than the regular consoles. You'll fucking make it up on the Steam sales, though.
Especially if it runs Windows or something out of the gate instead of Windows or Linux.
This is why,
if it doubles as a computer,
Linux, point to a Steam console, because if they run it as a Linux core, then no Windows licensing. Now, it must mean that developers support, but they're pushing that out there with their source engine. They're telling developers to support Linux. They're communicating as hard as they can. You're going to want to support Linux. We're going to make Linux worthwhile. And I think that's awesome.
And part of that may also be just hedging their bets given Windows 8.
Windows 8 and everything.
But
Yeah, Windows 8.
Anyway.
The fact that PlayStation messed up.
Since Wii U came out, just touch base on that real quick. I think it's overpriced for what you're getting. I don't think the hardware is overpriced. The problem is that I don't want the stupid tablet controller thing. That is probably a good chunk of the price. Just fucking give me 2 standard controllers and 32 gigabytes. Are you fucking shitting me? Like, I don't want a console that has 32 gigabytes. That is not enough for a digital console going forward. Stick a 250 gig drive in that sucker. Now we're talking, so 2 controllers.
Well, the question is Nintendo trying to be a media center like Microsoft and Sony are? And they probably
they're also
aren't,
trying
which
to,
maybe...
go off on this gimmick thing of, like, we still have to have a controller gimmick. We can't back down from the craze the Wii started.
So tablet.
And so, yeah, we're trying to, like, have this tablet thing happen, but you're forcing it, and it's not...
Expect every game you look forward to use it in some way that makes you hate that game.
Well, I think that'd be funny because Bayonetta will probably use it, because they announced Bayonetta 2 as an exclusive Wii U launch, which is not weird that it's on the Wii U. It's weird that Nintendo is reaching out to the Bayonetta franchise, because that is so against everything that they have stood for. Like, they are the kid-friendly console, they are all this.
It's me, Mario!
And this Bayonetta is like the adolescent male dream, you know? It's
and everything I've heard about it, I'm surprised that there's even a second one or that exclusivity is that big a deal. But apparently what happened was their previous publisher
Sega dropped them. Yeah,
so
Sega dropped them, so I think Nintendo picked it up.
It seems more of a marriage of convenience than someone was shopping around for Wii U exclusivity.
I guess Team Ninja
or
was like,
Bayonetta exclusivity.
We're boobed up at the moment. We have a boob backlog, so we can't pick that up at the moment. We would love to, but it's not surprising me that it wouldn't gain a cult following, because if you play it, it's just fucking insane. And as much as, you know, we talk on this show about gaming and female rights in gaming and women issues and all of that, it's not to the exclusion of the other end, right? Like, the thing is that there's not a representation of the female empowerment in gaming. We're not trying to stop Chun-Li, you know, or anything happening, or Bayonetta. Those are fine. We're trying to get the alternative, you know,
out there. There are better choices.
And I think, to me, there should totally be a core loyal audience that'll follow Bayonetta, because there is nothing fucking like it. And it is insane, and it is crazy, and I have an interest in even playing it, except it is kind of a combo masher fighting game, which I hate. So I didn't make it through that game, because it's a combo mashing game, and I kind of got over that. But I was always like, fuck, I hear somebody talk about the next crazy scene in it, and I'd be like, fuck, I gotta put that back in and play that. And I may do that. I may go back in, restart it, throw it to absolute easy baby mode, and just play it for the story.
So that by the time the Wii U comes out, you decide you have to have it?
Have to have the sequel just to know. Like, I don't know that Wii U is gonna be worth jumping on. We don't touch the Wii at all.
No.
Yeah, I don't either, really.
My brother, who has a Wii, has been specing because he's thinking that he might choke and just like, I must get the Wii U because there will be a Smash Brothers on it.
Man, I don't know. Like, the Wii version of that game was really good. Just like the Mario Kart Double Dash was great. You don't need anything past that. I guess if you're wanting to play and keep up, I can see that.
He knows all these points, but that will not stop him from buying the next one. It's
no,
like
it's just what they want.
It's like crack.
All right, Kickstarters this week. Papier Adventure. Now, this one is looking for $140,000. They almost got $4,000 raised at this point. They don't have gameplay, and that's a problem, I think. They have a very distinct, unique art style. You know, as you would expect, is kind of a 3D sketch world, and they're constantly, you know, standing and talking about the game in their art style. And and it looks really great, and it's like, yeah, this will be kind of a cool adventure game. But you aren't showing me like how that's going to fit in the gameplay, you know, and I think it's going to hurt them long run. I don't think they're going to hit the 140,000, which is a significant hill to try to climb on that. And it might be a shame because it looks like it's going to be a very interesting looking game, but I don't think it's going to be a successful Kickstarter. This next one, I'm debating on backing. And it is the Game Master's Campaign Fantasy Art Kit. Now, this is designed for D&D and role-playing and tabletop gamers to make maps that they print out on their computer. Okay, it's a bunch of digital assets to design and make those maps. And you just kind of build them. And it looks really well done. Like, the graphics that they show in there look really well polished. And there's no reason this couldn't be a top-down video game. The hesitation, and I emailed and I confirmed, but the licensing does not allow you to distribute in any form the art unless you back it at the 250 level. At the 250 level, you get some rights to distribution. And I confirmed, I sent an email and asked the guy on Kickstarter, yes, it would confirm putting it in a game and shipping it. It would not cover some kind of asset building tool, right?
Right.
Like, they would have to be a game, but you couldn't ship like a level editor with the game that had like all the raw assets from his map in it, because that's basically distributing the collection, right? But baked in the game, and you know, the assets that you used in there, it looks pretty good. I'm gonna think on 250. It looks like it's a value at 250. And we backed that other one, and I like the idea of having all these pre-canned assets to kind of prototype with in our library, just kind of like we have all this royalty-free music, sound effects, royalty-free sound effect collection, just having those available to just reach out and grab and use, and not worry about having to replace that later. Like, it's placeholder, but that placeholder may stick, and that may be completely fine. And I like that. That we get the best of both worlds. We have good placeholder art. We can show off demos and concepts that look nice. Then we can choose to replace that art with our own art later, or we can keep some of that, or we can supplement it. So I'm gonna think on that. I may go ahead and back this, but it's got 40 days to go, so I've got my time on it yet. To see how that goes. If it gets stretch goals, of course, there's more art. But to give you an idea, it is a sizable chunk. Here on the video, I'll do a slow scroll here through this stuff, so you can just see the different kinds of creatures and objects that you get to place, and map tile sets. Now, it's all fantasy-based in the first one. And of course, like, none of it's going to be animated, right? Because it is static imagery designed to be printed out. But looking at 130 to 400 monsters and creatures, and he breaks out different types that, you know, the various demons, a number of dragons, and different types of things, you know, sheep, cow, ox, and all that. 50 humanoids, you know, elves, humans, orcs, like half-hour, you know, players, basically. 100 different objects and items for placing, backdrops and terrain types, 50 terrain walls and decals and things to place. Base kits will contain at least 3 of the items below, like beds, shelves, tables, chairs, that kind of thing. So, any guys that goes in the pledge level. And then he does have some stretch goals. So he will, $7,000. He's looking for about, I think, 5,000. Yeah. And then hitting 7,000 is Tavern Inn themes. 9,000 is Castle and Siege Engines and Torture Chambers. 12,000 is Holy Places. And then to be revealed if it gets that picked up. But I think it could be a good deal. And I even think at 250, that might sound steep, but royalty-free licenses like that, you do pay a little bit.
He's got 41 days to go, so he could, I guess, easily hit his stretch goals.
Yes. Yes, at the rate he's going, he could easily hit stretch goals. The next one up is Stara Tactics. And it's built itself with lots of evolution of chess. This is just a 4-player chessboard. And I don't know, Dylan, if you've ever played 4-player chess. This is something that exists. It looks like they have some alternate rules available, to vary it up. But I've built 4-player chessboards and played them in chess club. It's a fun variant, but it's not strategic, right? Like the rules and the patterns of chess break down when you play 4-handed chess. If you never play, the board basically extends 3 rows in each direction, so it looks like a giant plus, and then each player is in the back of one of those 3 rows. I think this one's going to fall down because he's asking for $120,000 for this game. And that is a high mark for what is essentially a variant of chess, and I think that's a niche market that'll be interested on that.
What he seems to have a lot done on already, even.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Once you get the basics in that.
I know that's a horrible thing to say.
It is.
A game developer, like
it is.
You don't want
another
anyone saying that.
Game developer's time. Pangenic. This is a very nice looking, but concept arted, grid-based tactical game, right? And I kind of like the art style and the look, and the pitch and the gameplay in this, and that's why I listed it on there. Also, $45,000 is a little high, but I think doable with what they're showing. It did launch on the 10th, and they haven't rocketed out, so they apparently didn't have their social media network campaigns greased up and ready to go when they launched. But it's worth a look. Definitely this is another one that's selling on its art. It's showing concept mock-ups, I think. They say these are concept works of how gameplay will work, and not actually running game. So again, I think that hurts it not having a running game up and working, but could be good. Next one up, Acheron, I guess. I don't know how they want me to say that. They're already up to $10,000 of their $25,000 goal. So this definitely looks like it's hitting funded. And this is a beautiful looking 3D game that's going to be a 3D RPG that has some like braid style quality to kind of simplify and overly reduct their systems, but like the world, there's like scenes where the world is like building itself as you walk, and it looks really cool. So it kind of has that thing going to it. It does have like some weaker animations on the 3D, but nothing to the point where I think it's detrimental. I think it's very capable for what these guys. I mean, it's very well impressed upon, and that's beyond just the RPG aspect. They're going for town customization and building and that kind of thing being tied into a story-driven world. So it looks good. It's one worth looking, and it looks like it's going to be funded. Acheron, Arakion, if you're interested in checking that one out. My last one is kind of a late addition. It's in here because Notch tweeted it, and I'm glad he did. They are, as we speak, almost $700,000 raised of their $1.1 million goal. And this is fucking Obsidian. Obsidian Entertainment. Like Fallout New Vegas, Obsidian, the new South Park game. Like, they're doing a Kickstarter. And I know there might be a reaction to them as far as like, oh, they could get a publisher, why aren't they doing it? I'm glad that they're going this route. One, it kind of helps break the mold and lets them make their own calls and gives them the freedom that like they do.
It allows them to start their own IP, because if you look at a lot of those games that they're
doing, they are starting new IP. But this one talks about being a throwback to the isometric party-based gaming. So you're having Obsidian go back and basically Planescape Torment. They're telling you, we're giving you a Planescape Torment, guys. That's what we're doing here. They've got the talent. They don't have gameplay up. They don't have mock-ups up and all that. This is a know who we are, and we have this really high production video going on of our Kickstarter, but we're getting backed off of who we are. But I also think that it's good that larger companies do that, not only to change the way publishing is done, because when publishers have to work harder to get studios, it'll flip in favor of the developers, and that'll be good. But also because it's been shown, Kickstarter had their own stats up there to confirm it. This broadens game revenue on the whole. Like, this brings in all the little smaller guys go up because these guys attract and widen the Kickstarter marketplace. So even though there may be a reaction to this of like, they could get this money if they wanted to, or they could take the profits I think they're getting from their other games and invest them and make this game, and it may be true, you're benefiting. You know, the Kickstarter thing, I think that's helping us all. So it's a good thing. I think that's it. I think this is a show. I think we went about 90 minutes this time, so that's fine. That's a good show. I'm happy to stop it there. I don't think we have anything to announce. XTiled again is over at Bitbucket. If you give it a check out, if you use it for anything, give us feedback, and I will see you guys in a week.